What's going on, web heads, and welcome to day 15 of Spider-Pop's 25 Days of Christmas, Season 4. And today, we do have what is going to be our final comic book breakdown for this 25 Days of Christmas series. So, I am super excited to go over today's Wicked Webtastic Amazing Spider-Man comics, because for today's video, it is going to be heavily revolving around the most morally questionable villain that Spider-Man does have throughout the comics, and in my opinion, that's going to be this little guy right here. We are talking about Dr. Otto Octavius in today's Amazing Spider-Man breakdown, because in the past few Amazing Spider-Man comics I've read, it's gotten pretty nuts. So I'm super excited to go over today's wicked awesome Amazing Spider-Man comics. We will be going over the Amazing Spider-Man issues number 27 through 30 by Zeb Wells today. So it is just going to be a wicked exciting video, so make sure you guys stick around till the end. Alrighty, but like I said, in today's video, we are going to be going over the Amazing Spider-Man 27 through the Amazing Spider-Man number 30 by Zeb Wells. And I just got done reading the Amazing Spider-Man number 30. I'm super excited to get into Gang Wars after this. But in these last few issues, as you guys know, if you guys are up to date with our 25 Days of Christmas series so far, in the last comic breakdown video, we did actually go over the death of Kamala Khan. And throughout these next few comics, we do get to go over a bit of a side story that does deviate from the death of Kamala Khan, that serves as a bit of a distraction for Spider-Man, Norman Osborn, and pretty much everyone involved in Kamala Khan's tragic death. But to properly go over this story, we do need to take it back to the Amazing Spider-Man number 6, which is actually the 900th issue in the Amazing Spider-Man line. But in this comic, we're introduced to a whole new villain that's not entirely important, because it does turn out the villain is not entirely what he does actually appear to be. And that is because it is actually a mashup of all 6 of Spider-Man's greatest villains, because it does turn out the Living Brain has actually captured all 6 of the Sinister Six to make this absolute abomination that is compiled of all of their abilities. That way it does actually stand a chance against Spider-Man. So the Living Brain does actually have all of the Sinister Six locked up, so they can't do anything to stop the Living Brain's plan. And that's when Otto Octavius, the main subject of today's video, does actually decide to detach from his mechanical arms and send them out in a search for help by one of DOCK-OCK's greatest foes, our guy, Spider-Man. So when he does actually send the mechanical arms out, we do actually see a few really hilarious panels at the start of the comic, where it does turn out Otto Octavius' arms have actually attached themselves to J. Jonah Jameson from the Daily Bugle. And at this point in the Amazing Spider-Man storyline, Jameson does actually know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So after these arms seemingly attach to him out of nowhere, Jameson does everything in his power to actually get to Peter Parker / Spider-Man in order to get help with his newfound appendages. So after Jameson does get to Spider-Man, the arms end up detaching from J. Jonah Jameson and then attaching to our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which, if you guys are familiar with the Superior Spider-Man storyline, this does actually touch a little bit on that storyline, with how well DOCK-OCK's arms actually do respond to Peter Parker when he is actually controlling them. But after the arms actually attach, the arms do actually take Peter to where the Sinister Six are being held. Peter ends up fighting this amalgamation of all of the Sinister Six, and after a long fight, Peter eventually does come to realize that it is the Living Brain. He finds where the Living Brain is, and that's when the Sinister Six, as sinister as they are, actually do turn on Peter Parker immediately after he had just saved them. So, pretty terrible from the Sinister Six, but can't really expect anything more from them. But after this happens, the first person to actually get a chance at a kill shot on Spider-Man is actually a
guy named Otto Octavius.
But that is when it does actually come to a shock to the audience that when he does actually go to attack Peter, because of his mechanical arms' new time spent with Spider-Man, DOCK-OCK's mechanical arms really want no part in harming Spider-Man at all. And DOCK-OCK is basically unable to do anything to harm Spider-Man at that moment. So eventually that does get resolved. This is where we'll flash forward to Amazing Spider-Man number 27. And in this issue, we are actually shown Dock-Ock's arms after that whole ordeal for the first time since Amazing Spider-Man number 6. So it's been quite a bit of time. After I read Amazing Spider-Man 27, I had to go back and read that number 6 issue just as a refresher for myself, so I did understand the story completely. But it is near the end of Amazing Spider-Man number 27 that Dock-Ock's arms are still on the loose, and after trying to reconnect with Peter Parker, Dock-Ock does actually come and swoop up his long-lost arms. So it is then we're taken to probably quite possibly the second saddest story arc throughout this whole line, behind the death of Miss Marvel. And after Dock-Ock does actually reconnect with his arms, we do actually come to find out that Dock-Ock wasn't grabbing his arms to reconnect. It turns out that actually he is really mad that his arms disobeyed him and didn't kill Spider-Man when commanded. So in this betrayal, Dock-Ock actually decides to craft a whole new set of arms using a whole bunch of detachable, what is called in the comics, Octoids. And they're these really ooey gooey looking cuff brace looking things that do actually connect together. They all have a little bit of Norman Osborn's consciousness imbued inside each of the individual pods. So in theory, the only person that these Octoids should listen to is Dock-Ock. So when he goes back to kill Spider-Man, he should have a lot less of an issue. At least that's what he thinks. After showing off his new Octoids that he has crafted, he then proceeds to break down his old set of Dock-Ock tentacles. And it does end up being, honestly, one of the saddest scenes, because throughout the time we are introduced to Dock-Ock's arms, they do act more or less like a pet to Spider-Man, which is honestly kind of funny to see throughout the comic issues. So when we actually do see it dismantled, it's even as sad as the end of Marley and Me. So if you guys end up getting this issue, make sure to get some tissues.
Hey, Mr. Stark, can you hear me? It's Peter.
After it being almost pretty much dismantled, the arms actually do manage to get out of Dock-Ock's clutches, or at least that's what we're led to believe, because at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 27, we actually do see the arms make their way to J. Jonah Jameson's house, and that is where we do see a devastated J. Jonah Jameson for the very last panel, looking down at his old buddy, Dock-Ock's arms.
Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
Yeah, we do pick up on the storyline in the next couple issues in Amazing Spider-Man 28 through 30. And for the sake of time on this video, I will try to break down all three in the simplest way possible. But we do pick back up on the story with Peter Parker at Oscorp. And it is there we actually do see J. Jonah Jameson burst in with basically a shopping cart with Dock-Ock's arms inside of the cart. And it's pretty sad. J. Jonah Jameson is basically running these arms into Oscorp like it's a family dog being taken to the vet. Jameson, definitely need some friends.
You tell my wife!
But after a little bit of convincing, Norman Osborn really wants nothing to do with repairing anything that is related to Otto Octavius. So after refusing a few times, he is actually convinced by Peter to actually repair the arms, because Peter does believe the arms have changed and have a bit of a separate consciousness than Otto Octavius himself. Flash forward a little bit, it turns out that they were duped.
We've been speckled, though.
They were absolutely bean boozled, because Dr. Otto Octavius turns out had a failsafe after he dismantled the arms and put code into the actual arms once they were in the Oscorp building to disarm all of Oscorp's safety protocols and mess with a whole bunch of Norman Oscorp's tech. So after this whole ordeal, the building starts shutting down. We do see Dock-Ock break his way into Oscorp with his new Octoid arms. And Dock-Ock is here for revenge on Norman Osborn. So a few panels later, we do actually see Dock-Ock confront Norman Osborn and Spider-Man. This time Norman Osborn is actually suited up in the Gold Goblin suit, which is his new alter ego, where he is actually trying to do good and make up for the things he's done in the past as the Green Goblin. So it is actually a really cool part of Norman's story. But even with his Gold Goblin suit, Octavius does end up dismantling the suit with his new Octoids, and after incapacitating Spider-Man, he ends up taking off with the man, Norman Osborn. That's when it starts to get really serious, because after Norman actually is captured, it is revealed that Otto Octavius wants to make Norman pay for everything that Norman has done to Otto in the past. So after realizing that all Norman really wants to do is make up for the wrongs that he's done, Dock-Ock does the absolute worst. He injects Norman Osborn with the G-Serum again. And if you guys don't know what G-Serum is, G-Serum is what made Norman Osborn the Green Goblin in the first place. So it's not good for anybody if Green Goblin does come back, and Norman doesn't want that, Peter doesn't want that, but Dock-Ock does. So throughout the next couple panels, we do actually see what looks like the transformation of Norman into the Green Goblin. And is there we actually do find out a really cool twist of Norman's character. Because to Otto Octavius' absolute shock, the G-Serum didn't work. Norman Osborn is built different now. Absolutely different. Because it's then revealed that Norman actually has been living with basically like triple the amount of G-Serum that was given to him in his body the whole time. Because it turns out that what the G-Serum actually did was activate the worst parts of him and all the demons within Norman himself. So after Norman went on quite a bit of soul searching, I won't go over really much of that throughout today's video because there's a lot. But Norman has come to cope with it and live with the G-Serum and just always keep himself in a better state of mind so he doesn't ever become the Goblin. So after that twist is revealed, DOCK-OCK ends up falling to Plan B and just starts beating up on Norman. But after a few punches, Spider-Man swings in and we get another epic battle between Spider-Man and DOCK-OCK. Spider-Man's fighting DOCK-OCK with DOCK-OCK's old arms. Spider-Man's given them a whole new paint job, so Spider-Man has these all new red arms. But with Otto's personality imbued throughout the actual tentacles, the more Peter wears them, similar in a way to Venom, it does actually make Peter act more and more like Otto Octavius himself. So Peter's trying to get this over with so he can get them off as soon as possible. Peter and Otto are actually going back and forth with each other. They're saying exactly the same lines back to each other because of their time linked during the Superior Spider-Man comic run, which honestly was a pretty creepy run, but was pretty cool at the same time. So in a cool throwback to that, we do actually see Peter and DOCK-OCK go at it. And at a point in the fight, DOCK-OCK almost does get the upper hand and kill Spider-Man after he does detach all of his Octoids and attempt to send him into an energy reactor that is going off in the background. But with DOCK-OCK being a goober, he forgot about Norman Osborn. So Norman Osborn came in, gave him a 1-2, and as an even bigger goober, DOCK-OCK called the arms back, dropped Spider-Man right where he was. Spider-Man didn't die. DOCK-OCK thinks he's all smart, but Spider-Man comes in, beats him up pretty bad. So with that being resolved, Peter then has to remove his new friendly DOCK-OCK spider arms, because as Peter puts it, they're just not good for each other. So the arms are a bit more reasonable than a Venom symbiote, so the arms basically are like, oh, okay, and then they detach. So pretty cool. And then as they're not paying attention, DOCK-OCK actually does manage to escape with his Octoids pulling him through the sewers. So unfortunately, Spider-Man's unable to put DOCK-OCK behind bars. I am super stoked to see where Norman's character goes from here throughout the Amazing Spider-Man run. The next Amazing Spider-Man chapter, basically, after this is going to be the Gang Wars storyline, where Spider-Man is going to go back and start facing Tombstone again, which hasn't really been brought up since the first couple issues of Amazing Spider-Man. So I'm looking forward to start reading those. But with all of that being said, that's pretty much all we got to go over for today's breakdown of the Amazing Spider-Man issues number 27 through 30. I do really hope you guys enjoyed today's comic breakdown as much as I did making it for all of you guys. Like I said, this is actually going to be the last comic breakdown of this year's 25 Days of Christmas series, so huge thank you to all of you guys who stuck around through all of our comic videos this year. I am greatly appreciative of all of you, and make sure to comment down below if you guys want to see us continue doing these comic breakdowns after 25 Days of Christmas is over, because they are a lot of fun to make. I do enjoy reading these comics and going over them for all of you guys, but just let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. If you guys want to see more comic breakdowns, I'll do them, but if not, we'll move on to something else. So make sure you guys comment down below, let me know what you guys think. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys are subscribed with bell notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of our future webtastic action. But with all that being said, that is pretty much going to do it for today's Day 15 video on the Spider Pops channel. I hope to see you guys bright and early for tomorrow's Day 16. We're getting closer to Christmas each and every day, so make sure you guys are staying safe out there, staying frosty and having fun, of course. Have an amazing rest of your day, webheads. Bye-bye.
Just like flies, look out. Here comes the Spider-Man.
I am wicked excited to go over today's wicked I can't speak. I can't speak.